Hello, I'm the Pink Phantom, and this is my podcast. Join me as I delve into the world of games and gaming, and especially old school RPGs. Together, let's voyage into the astral realm and check out my phantom thoughts. I want to start off the show talking about player agency, and more specifically, asking a couple of questions about what does it take to make player agency a reality. Now, in old school play, player agency is a big thing. That the players, they are driving the direction that the campaign goes. That the game master serves as an impartial referee, as someone who makes rulings where the rules don't have any way that obviously apply, and provides a world to play in. But there's not some overarching plot or story or quest that the game master is handing off to the players and it's going to go in this direction. But the players are going to look around the world, see what's around them, and make a decision as what they want to do, what goals they want to pursue from there. Now, over on the Minions and Musings podcast, hosted by Evil Jeff, there has been a discussion about player agency. And there have been call-ins to that show from Jason from the Nerds RPG Variety Cast, and also to Riley from the Diegetic Advancement podcast. And this is centered around the question of, do the players have real agency if they have 2 or 3 or 4 choices, but there's one choice that is obviously better than all the rest? Or is that a form of, or a movement toward in the direction of railroading, where the DM has some sort of rails or some sort of walls limiting where the players can go because they're going to have to be directed in this direction at some point because it's the best way to go instead of simply by GM fiat. And those guys have had a great discussion about that, and I'm not going to take that from them. I'm going to link to those 2 episodes of Minions and Musings in the podcast notes and let them do that. But what it inspired in me, what it led me to thinking, a branch off of that, if you will, is what kind of world does the GM have to create in order to allow for player agency? Because the theory behind player agency being so important in these games is that the players, if you give them, the players will make decisions that make the game interesting to them, that push the plot forward for them, and that by having that decision-making power solely in their hands, whatever becomes of it is on their is whatever becomes to their characters is of their own doing. If there's a total party wipe, it's because they made bad choices or possibly bad die rolls, but you take the luck of the dice into account when you make decisions in these kinds of games. And if things go very well the way they want them to, then it was a great plan. And there's a lot of talk when you hear these discussions that, okay, you created this big bad and they one-shotted him in one round. That's a good thing because they probably came up with a good plan, found good allies, adventured to get the right magic items that would enable them to do that, and were able to overcome the defenses that the big bad had with all his minions or his own abilities, and they were able to make it easy. And if they can make it easy, it should be easy. Because in this style of play, which usually is a sandbox style of play where players can go in any direction they wish, there's going to be areas they probably shouldn't go yet until they have strengthened themselves, where first level characters should not wander amongst a forest where there's nothing but large dragons lurking. That's an extreme example, but that's kind of a picture of what you're looking for in these kind of campaigns, where players make choices and they choose the challenges they want to accept. So where am I going with this? Where I'm going with this is also in old school gaming, and it's not a universal concept, I don't think, but there's been a trend or a lot of talk about low prep, no prep gaming for GM, where if you try to make too vast and intricate a world, It leads to GM burnout because you end up with a lot of stuff that either doesn't get seen by the players or gets ignored. And at some point, you're not getting anything back for the vast amount of work you're putting in the effort, no matter how much fun you may be having with the moments that you're playing. And so the idea is that you create your world and adjudicate your campaign largely through random tables. And these are usually, in a lot of cases, it's recommended they're bespoke tables that you've kind of put together so that there's a certain amount of consistency or a certain amount of relevance to what you're putting on the table, that it's not just a complete fun house where you run into one weird, strange thing after another, unless, of course, that's the type of campaign you're going for. But what the player agency discussion got me to think about was, if you're running a very low prep or no prep campaign, can there be, in fact, any player agency? Because part of the idea of player agency is the players making decisions. And in order to make decisions, they have to have information to work with. And if you're running a campaign largely from random tables, even ones that you've designed to work kind of together and have some consistency, one of the strengths that's mentioned of this type of play is that the GM can be just as surprised by what happens as the players do. But if the GM's surprised and the players are surprised, where's the ability to plan? Where's the ability to think about your choices? Where's the ability to make a good choice? Because if the GM doesn't know what's going to happen, the players don't know what's going to happen, if it's all based on the dice, who's to say it's not going to lead you to something very easy? It could lead you to something very hard. It could lead to consecutive party wipes. It could lead to a campaign that ends up petering out because the challenge just isn't there, because you're putting randomization at the heart of the campaign. So even though you don't want a campaign on rails, and you don't want a campaign even necessarily with walls or with quantum ogres or goblins that you're going to have to always face them eventually, no matter which path you take, there does need to be some thoughtfulness. There does need to be some, dare I say, boundaries on a campaign put into place by a GM, however broad, so that the campaign world itself can be consistent enough that the players can make good decisions for the characters that they have. So that's my long, winding thought process on that. That's just something that came to mind while I was listening to the discussions about player agency. And if anyone out there has any thoughts on this tangent of mine, I'd love to hear it. Please let me know. And now, more from my solo AD&D RPG campaign, Tales of the Dragon Slayers. When we last left off, the second level party that was aiding the garrison at the River Keep had taken some severe losses. They had lost one of their magic users, the one that was wearing the artifact, the invulnerable coat of Arnd. Their cleric had been reduced to 0 hit points and will be out of action for a week. And they also lost 2 of their 4 hireling heavy footmen. So they'd taken some severe damage, and the next encounter is going to take place an hour after that encounter. So with the ranger and one of the remaining footmen also being injured, they will be kind of catching their breath, recovering. So if any of these, even if this next encounter occurs, if the creature gets through, then it'll be a group of some of the heavy footmen or the cavalry that are on patrol inside today for this day. So there are 3 encounters that are going to be happening this day. So let's see which of the 3 occurs today. And this is going to be a group of volts, 4 volts. They're small little creatures. I mean, they're size small creatures, and they are animal intelligence, and they are 2+1 hit die. Now, because they're small creatures, that may give them an advantage in depending on which section of the keep they're coming up through, because one of those areas, the barrier was put together by the large gnolls, so they're not as effective against the small creatures, which are 2 sizes smaller than them. So let's see which of the 4 they attempt to come up through. And it's number 3, which is one of the ones that's been reinforced. It's actually the strongest overall barrier that they have. So 2 plus 1 hit dice, animal intelligence, size small. That would be a D5 plus 1. That's 5 plus 1. Plus 1 simply because there's a plus on their hit dice. But we don't have a D5, so I'm going to do a D6, just a straight D6, because D5 plus 1 would give you roughly the same results, because it gives you a 2 to 6 result. So here we go. And they get a 5, and the 5 is not sufficient to get through that barrier. So they attempt to get through that barrier, but they're not able to squeeze through. The improvements that were made by the troops keeps them from getting through it. So we will pass the rest of the day, and they patrol to nothing. They lay down, take their sleep. But early in the morning, just before they're going to arise, will be when the 3rd encounter of that day will occur. So there's two encounters left. So 1 or 2 or 3 or 4. So with a 2, that is going to be 2 nilbogs. Now, these are goblins that are afflicted with essentially a magical disease. Nilbog is goblin backwards. They are not injured by weapons. They can only be injured by healing spells and healing potions and things of that nature. And they also have an effect on the creatures around them. I'll have to look up exactly what. But this is not necessarily a good encounter. So these are medium creatures. They are hit dice 1 minus 1. And they have average intelligence. And this is actually the first indication of anything like a goblin that we have seen in this campaign. None of our rolls have come up with goblins. We've had kobolds, hobgoblins, ogres, orcs, lots of orcs, and even some bugbears, but no actual goblins. So maybe all the goblins in this region were afflicted with this magical disease, so they're all nilbogs. Perhaps a little more lore for the realm. We'll see how things work out. But first, let's see how these nilbogs do. And let's read up on them a little bit. Let's see what nilbogs are here. This creature looks exactly like a normal goblin in all the characteristics of the race, with one important exception. It suffers from a curious spatio-temporal reversal. Remains a mystery why only goblins are susceptible to this strange disorder. Nilbogism, the name given to the disorder, appears to occur when overly heavy use of magic strains the fabric of the space-time continuum and leads to some very strange localized events. The coincidence of conditions which lead to nilbogism is extremely rare and only imperfectly understood. The creature itself does not in any sense transmit the disorder to those around it. Some of the effects are transmitted. Many and varied accounts have been received about the nature of the space-time disturbance which takes place in the presence of nilbogs. Only one factor appears to be common. The adventurers will have no control over their own actions and will generally pursue courses of action contrary to their normal intent. For example, they may feel an overwhelming compulsion to load all their treasure into an empty treasure chest in the nilbog lair and leave empty-handed. There are no saving throws against these effects, nor is there any known defense, though powerful spells such as Wish will, if used properly, have a chance of rendering local immunity against the effects. Another curious feature of nilbog power is that the creatures gain hit points when it is struck. The addition being equal to the intended damage rolled, it can only lose hit points by such means as casting cure wounds, forcibly feeding it healing potions, and so on. For obvious reasons, encounters with these strange creatures are dreaded, and as a result, normal goblins tend to be treated with extreme caution lest they turn out to be nilbogs. There appears to be no way of distinguishing the two apart other than the use of such spells as commune or by trial and error. So let's say that also it's kind of a change in luck for them. It may make it more likely for them to get through the barriers here. So we have a hit dice 1 minus 1 creature. They are medium-sized, and they are average intelligence. So all of that is going to add up to a D8 minus 1 because of a minus to the hit die. And let's say let's say the positive effects negate that hit die result, no, -1 result. So it'll be a straight D8. So let's see which of the barriers will they be coming through. And it will be barrier number 1, which against medium creatures has a 6. So here we go, rolling a D8, and they rolled a 7. So they get through. They find their way through the maze of planks and girders and what have you that have been placed in the way, perhaps furniture, and they will reduce the effect of that barrier by 1 on that medium scale there. So it makes the barrier a little weaker. And they are encountered by a patrol. So do they surprise the patrol? I'm going to give them an additional 1, so 3, a 1, 2, 3 on a 1d6. They surprise them, and they roll a 5. So now the patrol rolls a 2, so they actually get 2 rounds of surprise on the goblins. These are goblins. We'll say that they take an opportunity to simply convince them to leave. Or do they? Because they are not in control of their actions. They're going to do contrary to their actions. So they're normal. So let's roll a reaction roll, actually. Let's do I'm just going to do a straight reaction roll, essentially. And we're going to roll, and we get a 20. No, I'm sorry, that's a 30% roll. And that is uncertain, but 55% negative. However, because we're going to reverse it, we'll make it a 70, which is uncertain, but 55% positive. So we're going to roll the dice again. And with an 18, it's a positive reaction towards the nilbogs. So they are inclined to talk with them rather than to attack them as creatures coming out of the dark. So my first instinct was correct. So now, what will they do? So instead of trying to invite them to leave, they're affected by this spatial awareness, time-space continuum warp, and instead invite them to sit down and enjoy a meal and join them for, some fellowship. And so people are surprised when they bring them in and they sit them down and they start fixing them a meal and treating them like their comrades that they haven't seen in a while. So let's see what the nilbog reaction to all this is. 56 uncertain, but 55% positive. 51 positive. So they go along with it. They're getting food out of it. The troops are handing them some silver coins, maybe the occasional gold coin if they happen to have one, and it's starting to affect the group. So again, we're going to roll reactions. We'll roll reaction for the remainder of the troops that are in the area, and they rolled an 80, which I'm going to flip that around and turn that into a 20, which is hostile immediate action. And what about the party members? 79, which would flip around to being 21, so also hostile immediate action. So now that is how surprised are the nilbogs that these folks, after being invited in, are kind of, and they're not surprised at all. How surprised are the people who invited them in, the patrol that came with them? They're very surprised. So they're going to be stunned into inaction for a couple of for a round. Let's say for the first round. So we go to initiative. The party and the people not affected by the nilbogs roll 2. The nilbogs roll a 1. So let's say that as part of their negative reaction, they're going to try to force them to leave, and they're going to be very unfriendly about it. And so we're going to roll another reaction roll for the goblins. For the nilbogs. And they roll a 2. So they are violently hostile immediately. So on their turn on this round, they simply attack. So the goblins have harpoons, and we're going to say that they Let's see who they go after here. They're going to go after a couple of the. They're going to go after those couple of heavy footmen. Now they're armed with harpoons, and they're going to need a 20 to hit anybody. So one rolls a 4, one rolls a 19. So the Nilbogs don't have any result. So second round, the party 3, the Nilbogs 4. Nilbogs attack again, 17 and a 10. So now the party group swings into action. The paladin takes up a challenge. Let's hit back with these heavy footmen with a glaive. They're going to need 15s, a 20, and a 20. So they both hit and do no damage. Well, actually, they do. Well, that leads to an interesting question. Can Nilbogs exceed their hit points? It does not say they can, but I'm going to say that they do, in fact, gain hit points, but they'll just be temporary hit points for the day. So the glaives are going to add 6 and 6 to these Nilbogs. So the Nilbogs started off with 2 hit points each. Now they both have 8. So they both have 8 hit points each. So now the party swings into action. The paladin needs a 14, doesn't get it. The ranger needs a 14, doesn't get it. So now the magic user. Now, I had previously rolled up a spell for him. For some reason, a second level spell, Ray of Enfeeblement. I went to replace it. I rolled on the chart to see what spell would replace it, and it was Charm Person. Now, this can only affect one of the creatures, and they do get a saving throw. So will Nilbogism affect this saving throw? The entry does not say. It doesn't show any additional type of magic resistance associated with it, so I'm going to say no. So if we look at the saving throw matrix, saving throw versus spells, this Nilbog is going to need to be a 19 or 20, and they roll a 2. So this creature is charmed. It will consider the magic user as its friend. Can they communicate? So now we need to know what kind of languages this magic user knows. This magic user has an intelligence of 15. And a 15 intelligence will give you, flipping to the character abilities, an additional 4 languages. So let us roll to see which 5 languages this magic user knows. And for the record, I'm using the random language determination table from the DMG on page 102 under non-player characters. So with an 80, that is Shidoo. And I'm not sure what a Shidoo is. A 44 gives Gnome. A 17 gives Dwarvish. And a 72 gives Orcish. And the last one will be 85, which is Zorn. If we ever run into a Zorn, we got somebody to talk to him. Well, with this group anyway. So that will be in addition to common and in addition to the alignment tongue, which is neutral good. So that will not help with the goblins. What do goblins speak? Well, let's see. Goblins will speak their own lawful evil, kobold, orcish, and hobgoblin. So the magic user can actually speak to this Nilbog and convince him to not act out of character, but to perhaps try to help placate his friend who is in a combat frenzy. So now we'll give that a roll. See how will the Nilbog react to the other Nilbog. and it's a 47%, so it's 55% negative, which makes sense because they're, kind of in the midst of combat here. Just, whoa, hey, hold on, let's take a minute. All right, so we'll roll again, and we rolled an 84, so that's going to be a positive result. So combat will cease, and there will be a discussion. And of course, the patrol that brought them in is also trying to help keep the peace. Like, wait, hey, hold on, these are great guys. We don't need to be fighting them. So I think there is a general discussion, and the one Nilbog is not interested in hanging around. And can he convince the other Nilbog that is charmed to go with him? I'm going to give it a very small chance, give it a 5% chance. And it is a 32, so he can't. So the charmed Nilbog is going to stay and hang around as a friend, and the other Nilbog is going to depart with a little more coin in his pocket because of these friendly guards. And afterwards, they don't know why they did that or what was going on. But let's say that because they were attacked, this guy says he needs some kind of a gift or something. So let's see how the group as a whole reacts to that. That's a 24, which would be a 74, which is a positive result. It is going to be uncertain, 76. So that is friendly, immediate action. We're going to say they give them something. And you know what? I think what they end up doing is they end up handing over the invulnerable coat of Arndt. I think that the effects of this disease, this magical infliction that just reverses people's perception of what's going on, is that, okay, man, you can go, you know what, here's a peace offering, take this with you. And again, the party doesn't know why they did that after the goblin left. We're going to say that the goblin, that they decide, you know what, we need to track this goblin down and get this back. And how lucky it is to have a ranger in the group. So the party is going to try to go after him. Outdoors, there's a base 90% chance of a ranger being able to follow a creature modified as follows. Plus 2% for each creature above 1. It's just the one creature. Minus 10% for every 24 hours which have elapsed. 24 hours have not elapsed. 25% for each hour precipitation. What is the let me check and see what kind of weather I'd rolled up for today. So this day had moderate rain. So we'll see how many hours of rain that represents. I'm just going to roll a d6. 5 hours of rain. So the adjustment for rain on the tracking is a minus 25% for each hour of precipitation. So that's going to be a minus 125%. And the base start is 90%. Let's see if there's any positives in here for that. But then how much of that time would have elapsed before the creature, after the creature left, before they recovered from the effects of the Nilbogism? I'm going to say not more than 1. So we're going to say it's a 25%, minus 25% from the 90%. So that'll give us a 65% chance of tracking. So is the ranger able to pick up the track? And with a 2%, yes, very much so. So the party of adventurers is going to take off after this Nilbog, trying to recover the artifact that their lost friend was wearing. So that's going to remove them from this area. But since it took an hour, they will be there potentially for the last potential encounter. So let's go through that real quick here. Process. This last one is going to be 6 Grimlocks. That's the last one for this day. It's taking place early morning. Everybody's awake because of the Nilbogs showing up. So there'll be just a standard chance of surprise. So let's see first, where are they coming through? And they're going to try to come through the area 1. So area 1 it's a fairly well built up area. for a medium-sized creature like the Grimlocks. They are medium-sized creatures. They have average intelligence. They have 2 hit dice. So that's going to give us a result of 9. So I'm going to roll a d10 and just subtract 1. And they rolled a 1. So they were not able to get through the barrier. So the Grimlocks retreat deeper into the keep, trying to find another way out. So we'll make a note of that. No encounter there. And the party sets off. And the new day, which will have, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 potential encounters, will be where we get a start on the next time with the party in chase of the Nilbog. And so the garrison forces will be on their own on this day. The opening theme of this podcast was Strength of the Titans, and the closing music is Late Night Radio, both from Kevin MacLeod at Incompetech.com, licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 4.0 license. If you have any thoughts or feedback, you can get in touch with me by leaving me a voicemail on my Google Voice number, 864-209-1441. That's 864-209-1441. Or through SpeakPipe at www.speakpipe.com/Phantom Thoughts. That's www.speakpipe.com/Phantom Thoughts. Or you can send me a message or an audio file on Discord, where I can be found the Pink Phantom, or through email, phantomthoughtspodcast@gmail.com. That's phantomthoughtspodcast@gmail.com. I don't have to play or read your feedback on the podcast if that is not your preference. Just let me know.